In bodywork land, this is a pretty important tool. I know one thing that's really important is a slide hammer, but back before in the, I don't know, you could say it was a couple decades ago, but a lot of people are still doing this. They'll drill a hole in a sheet metal where there's a dent if they can't get to the other side of it and pull it out. And then they'll use like a slide hammer or dent puller. It's actually a slide hammer, preferred term, and to pull it out. But actually, I'll even tell you something else. If you actually use a drill a hole in here, you're better off not drilling a hole. You're better off punching a hole through it, because when you punch a hole through it, the other side makes the metal go out like a little bit like that. Then when you screw something into it, it will hold up a lot longer when you're trying to pull the dent out. If you just drill a flat hole, it doesn't have that metal that's pushed out the other side, so the screw won't hold in there as good. But what they got, and they had this for a while, but a lot of people just don't do it. It's from Chicago Electric, made in China, but Chicago Electric's pretty good, you know. It's a stud welder. And first, you take a grinder. Well, you don't have to grind the area, but I would say, for instance, if there was paint on it, because you got to ground it out. But it's just clean metal. And what you do is you have these studs, and they go in here, and all you got to do is you pull the trigger on this thing. It's pretty simple, actually. I couldn't do this with the camera rolling at the same time, but basically you would press down this top button, and it would just go off until the circuit breaker clicks. But basically you got your ground and your welding point right here in this, right incorporated in this itself. It's a stud welder specifically for this. So you press it down like that, and then you got the ground is on the outside. So the pin was in there, and you can see what happened. You got the actual stud is welded right to this, nice and neat with a little bit of distortion. Then you put your slide hammer on there and pull it out. And basically this has a little, you just turn that wheel down a little bit on it, and it grips onto the stud, and you can pull it out. And then after this is done, you just cut these off or break them off. They could break off, and then you grind them smooth. Now the beauty of this is, because before you used to put plastic on here and you'd have a hole, and if any moisture gets on that plastic, forget about it. It's going to bubble up. I mean, it could be in a place where you think there's not going to get moisture, but after a while it gets screwed up. So this is the way to go. Use a stud welder on it, and there's not much distortion on the metal at all. Actually, I got this held on here with this is actually a valve spring compressor tool. Actually, I get a hell of a lot of tools. I got like far more tools than a mechanic has. But you can see it doesn't really screw up the metal as much. There's no hole in it or anything like that. So, when you grind this smooth, there's nothing there at all. So this is the way to go. And if you're pulling out dents, you're better off doing this. And these studs will handle a hell of a lot more force than the screws, because what happens with the screws is you wind up pulling that out and you pull another one out, because actually a lot of times I used to fix dents that they said they were unfixable. They say, oh, you got to cut that quarter panel off. Well, you smash it with a big enough hammer long enough, you're going to get it, and you will. So that's exactly, with this thing, you put a bunch of these on here and you're just pulling them out left and right, and you're hammering in the high spots. You pretty much can fix anything, because you can shape the metal any way you want. If you put a pile of these in an area that's got a major dent, even on a corner where the steel's double up, you'll get that out, no problem. So this is a vital tool, and I don't like drilling those holes in there. You're better off using a stud welder, much better off. And it's not much money, man, to tell you the truth. And I just keep picking up tools all the time, and a lot of people don't. They don't think about this shit, but you're better off. And I'll store them in like these plastic containers a lot of times. I'll show you what I mean. Yeah, a lot of times I'll put them in these action packs. I like these damn things because they're pretty much waterproof. I don't know who makes them, Rubbermaid or something, but I left them out in the sun, and a lot of times stuff that it's inferior quality will fall apart. So a lot of times when I take a device like that thing there, I'll put it in one of these action packs, and you don't have to worry about any moisture getting up there, screwing up the tools or anything, because you don't use them that often. But it's a very, very handy tool to have, because you don't want to be punching holes in metal. You want to actually just weld those studs on there. And those studs, they'll last a lot longer when you're pulling out a dent than the screw. The screw would just rip right out. But if you have to use the screw, like I said, punch a hole in there. Don't use the drill bit. Actually use a sharp punch. And this way the metal's like indented into the other side. It goes out a little bit. And so when you put the screw in there, it's got more to grip. So, you know, because it's almost like, instead of just going through a flat surface, it's got a lot more to grip because the metal's like pushed in. So that's another tip. But I would definitely get that stud welder. That thing is, when they came out with that about 20 years ago, and a lot of people still aren't using it, man, that was the best thing in the world. Best thing in the world.